Today we're going on a scenery journey that's taken over 10 years to create. Welcome to the Siege of Gondor, the biggest wargaming board in YouTube history. When COVID-19 hit the world, I rallied my local wargaming community to begin a massive undertaking to create a true-scale wargaming table of the city of Minas Tirith. And being the sneaky bastard that I am, I had much larger plans than just the White City. I dreamed of creating a full scenic experience for the entirety of the Siege of Gondor, from Osgiliath right through the Pelennor up to Minas Tirith. One gigantic landscape for an epic 50-player 2-day campaign to recreate the greatest battle from the Lord of the Rings, and arguably all Western fiction, the Siege of Gondor. Today we are incredibly close to that goal, as for the first time ever we bring together all of the completed elements into one super board and embark upon the full journey of creation of this incredible wargaming spectacle. From the war-torn streets of Osgiliath right up to the also war-torn streets of Minas Tirith. If you're a fan of stupidly massive Middle-earth scenery, strap yourself the f*** in, because things are about to get wild. This story begins back in 2010 as I embarked on a 7-year quest to build a 100 square foot Osgiliath gaming table for a long-form campaign between me and my best mate Jacko, which would ultimately result in the creation of this very channel. This beast was carved exclusively from foam coreboard by hand with a tired old scalpel, and was completed in and around university studies and the early days of my career in the film industry. As I finished off the board in October of 2017, I threw together a little video, which absolutely blew up to 100k when the new edition of Middle-earth SBG launched, and that inspired me to take the project even further. This original incarnation of the board had a lot of flaws and really showcased a range of build qualities, as it encompassed the beginning of my transition from hobbyist to full-time craftsman. So, last year I decided to absolutely smash the board to pieces and cannibalize it for parts. Osgiliath would be reborn in a new layout that kept the spirit of my original vision, but vastly upgraded the board. This first city block you can see here is due to be painted next month, and then gets absolutely buried in liters of resin before an additional 3 city blocks are added to complete a full 100 square foot of flooded ruins. But long before the city of Osgiliath was remade, the second phase of this mega scenery piece dominated over 6 months of my life. 50 square feet of Pelennor fields, complete with a crumbling outer ring wall, Gondorian farmsteads, LED and smoke machine powered fire pits, and over 200 corpses, including orcs, Rohirrim, Easterlings, and even 3 dead Mumakil. This board was a real milestone for the channel, as it was my first build with a really unified build quality, and hosted an absolutely massive 10,000 point battle report, which we'll actually be revisiting next month as we dive into some more Pelennor Fields action here on the channel. It forced me to embrace a whole heap of new techniques as I strove for more and more realistic scenery, and although I find many faults with it now, I'm still pretty happy with it whenever it comes out for games. One real positive for me is that somehow I managed to turn what is essentially 50 square feet of flat grass into a really exciting gaming piece. The walls, the little rocky outcrops, the corpses all create interesting gameplay elements, and every game on this bad boy feels pretty exciting. If you'd like to see an in-depth video on the entire journey of the Pelennor build, I've linked one up above, and be sure to hit that subscribe button for me so you won't miss out on any of the sexy Pelennor Fields content coming out in March and April. So we've got the beginnings of a reforged Osgiliath and a fantastic Pelennor, but where this project really kicks off is the absolutely mental, true-scale Minas Tirith COVID-19 community build. Now, I'm sure most of you will be long familiar with this project by now. I've been working on it for over 2 years, and just last month, along with a whole slew of amazing YouTubers from the Fellowship of the Zorp collaboration, we completed the very first city block. And I've since released a couple of awesome battle reports exploring the first part of the city in detail, but in the past 2 years, we've already built a huge collection of buildings and walls and towers, but we have never assembled the entire city in one massive layout. That all changes today. But before we whack it all together, Tubertown actually needs a little bit of work. The last time you guys saw this build, I'd only managed to get it primed for the full reveal. We were missing a lot of detail, and even one entire building from the collaboration. So, let's get Tubertown done. But first, this video is brought to you by Manscaped.com, the global brand for men's grooming and hygiene products. Manscaped offers the best tools and liquid formulations for the 3 big odor zones: your body, your butt, and your balls. They recently hooked me up with a bunch of stuff from their all-in-one Performance Package 4.0. Let's check it out. Up first, we've got the Lawnmower 4.0 Body Trimmer, Manscaped's 4th generation electric and waterproof trimmer with advanced skin-safe technology to help reduce cuts and nicks on all those sensitive regions of the body. Also included in the Performance Package 4.0 kit is the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant, the Crop Reviver Ball Toner Spray, and the Weed Whacker Ear and Hair Nose Trimmer. Manscaped really does have you covered from head to toe. For a limited time, you get all this plus 2 free gifts: the Shed Travel Bag and the Manscaped Anti-Chaving Boxer Briefs. Go to manscaped.com today to get 20% off, free international shipping, and those 2 free gifts when you use the promo code ZORP at checkout. Manscaped, always the right tools for the job. First of all, I continued our stonework pattern onto the inner courtyard, wrapping around the second wall, leaving a slot for a future building, and then, with the foundation done, it's time for the moment we've all been waiting for. The broadsword Blacksmith finally arrived. Yes, the last building from the Fellowship of the Zorp collab is here, and now it's time to build this bad boy into the main board. The Grey Prime had cooked a little bit in the extended postal journey, and a bunch of the packing foam had stuck to the paint, but luckily that stuff is all water soluble these days, so that just comes straight off. And then in his infinite wisdom, Ollie from Broadsword Wargaming left the front door back in Ireland, so I grabbed a plaster cast door from my bits box and filled in the gaps around it with some nice foam edging, and then whacked it down into the city itself. I really love the way this building sits into the wall, and I fell in love with the idea of building it even more into the city architecture. Like, it's not a building that got built at a later stage, but it's actually an integral part of the defensive machine of the outer garrison. So I grabbed a bunch of old broken stairwell pieces that were actually original mold masters for the stairs that we made back in April 2020 in the first video of this build that really exploded, and then I cut them down into a whole heap of useful parts. I removed Ollie's rock wall to be reused elsewhere in the build, and then cut down the width of the foundation and glued the main structure onto the board and built a hella sexy stairwell extending out from the wall and wrapping around down into the Broadsword Blacksmith courtyard. I extended the base of the stairwell with a few offcuts and sealed all the gaps with a whole heap of Geek Gaming PVA and grout activated with matte scenic sealant to lock it down rock solid. A couple of sexy battlement pieces to tie it into the wall architecture, and with a final position for our blacksmith detail pieces, boom, she's ready for paint. Just like the last time, a foam-safe floral spray primer first, and then a nice coat with Rust-Oleum white. Now for painting, I got so inspired by Eric's amazing paint job for his crafting guild in the Fellowship of the Zorp collab, I decided to use his scheme instead of my old one. So I grabbed some oil paints and some odorless thinner and started mixing up my stains. Check out his video linked above for more detail, but basically it's just a grey wash over everything to establish the recessed details, which was working really well on the cobblestones. But then I hit a little snag. I was in a pretty mental rush to get this board done for Battle Report filming, so when I ran out of thinner, I just grabbed another random thinner from my cupboard without spot testing, and it kind of melted the living out of the foam. Thankfully, I noticed before much damage was done and went and bought some more of the good stuff and mixed up some super sexy stains of burnt and raw sienna to build up the dirt and the stains of medieval life, shall we say. This was such a fun process, whacking color in everywhere in super subtle passes, slowly building up the character and the life on the walls. I really enjoyed imagining where the grime would build up, where the dirt is pooling from rainwater, where the occupants are tipping refuse from the walls and windows. It was so much fun. I'm just gonna keep talking about this a tiny bit more because basically I shot like way too many sexy shots, which is essentially just me whacking some washes on the walls for absolutely no reason. Awesome, that's all those used up. From a new favorite painting technique onto an old classic. The rock work around the beard clippers barber needed some leopard spotting, and oh my Iluvata, these are easily the most realistic rock tones I have ever achieved. First up was a few passes of burnt sienna diluted with water, and then a couple of little flicks of phthalo green Liquitex ink, all splotched and random all over the rock face, and then a strong black wash over all of it. We'll return to this guy in a sec to get this amazing finish. First though, we need some scatter details. I threw some files into my 3D printer and whipped up some sexy crates and barrels and gave them a big zenithal prime and then hit them with a bunch of glazes using thinned contrast paints, browns for wood, skeleton horde for the sacks, and then a big khaki dry brush over the lot to finish it off and bring up the detail. The forged parts were greys and metallics, and I then scattered those pieces throughout the city, trying to bring in a little bit more city life. The final touch to really lift the whole piece and help break the monotony of the repeated stonework is some greenery. So I grabbed some clump foliage and a bunch of my Geek Gaming scenic foam flocks that are available from my own store, Zorpazorp.com, down below, and started whacking in some plant life. The first order of business was to hide all the damage to the stonework from the thinner. So a bunch of weld bond PVA went in with some clump foliage and then a sprinkle of green blend foam flock, and boom, no more damage. Then I just started pouring pinches of flock all over the city. Green blend where I want live plant life, and a mix of brown and light green when it was meant to capture dead leaves, and started brushing them into all the corners and edges of the stonework. Essentially, you want the plant matter building up in the regions that are nice and realistic for leaves to get blown. I threw some green blend foam flock over all the rock face to give it some plant life, and then made some creeping ivy with some more clump foliage. Then to seal everything in place, I soaked the whole surface in matte scenic sealant, also available from Zorpazorp.com, and there we have a super sexy city with so much more life than just the boring old primed stone we started with. With Tuba Town complete, it's time to begin assembling the full scenic monster of the Siege of Gondor. Unfortunately, my makeshift studio in the garage isn't even close to big enough for this monster, so here we are in the living room. And up first is the aforementioned Tuba Town. I am pretty pumped to finally unite this piece with its long-lost Minas Tirith brothers and sisters. We're gonna stay in the White City land and bring in all the many elements already created, but first we need a bit of a baseboard extension. At the moment, these other pieces are removable scatter. They'll be built into a baseboard in the coming months, but for now, a few sheets of XPS foam and some blue curtains will give us our foundation.
Pretty excited to add my bit of wall to this.
Whack it down, Rhino. A big moment.
Next, we'll continue the walls we built way back in January of 2020, combining our own walls with the community donations from the amazing Charlie Moreno and our very own Ryan Trays. The first of our inner city structures is the joinery between Tuba Town and the lower level. I pillaged an old ramp from the cannibalized Osgiliath bridges, and using some of our stair pieces, I've scored a second access way to the upper level. Eventually, this ramp will be a built-in structure like Tuba Town, but that's enough spoiling of secret future projects for now. The city buildings themselves are all due to one amazing man, the almighty Viv from Knights of Dice. In April of 2020, this terrain-making god built all of these structures in 24 hours as a part of a huge challenge video that you can see linked above. They are absolutely perfect to start our city. Dwellings, stables, shops, warehouses, armories, barracks, these epic pieces are the perfect sandbox, and there are so many possible layouts. The next big panels to go down are of course our Pelennor fields. Now I just had to build them off Tuba Town with the perfect matching grass, but this board is only 8 feet wide, so it doesn't span the full White City, but it's the perfect size for our Pelennor campaign element. And finally, I can post a video featuring the outer ring wall, the Ramis Ekor, and not have viewers confusing it with the walls of Minas Tirith and asking why there's grass inside the city. Hallelujah. Now it's time for a few sexy details. The amazing Dead Mumakil sculpts painted up by the incredible full-scaled Conflict linked up above, and our huge collection of siege towers. The first two creations donated by Andy Marchant, and the other beasts were 3D printed by a whole team of epic community members headed up by Jacob from Conquest Creations, who put together a whole video coordinating their creation linked up above.
This is absolutely massive. Just huge.
So Pelennor and Minas Tirith are together, and today that's all we're gonna do. The first part of Osgiliath will be joining very soon though, but he needs a little bit of work before he truly belongs with his brethren on the fields of battle. So, what's left to add to these parts? Well, we need the docks of Harlon for the Pelennor, the inside city needs more work, and of course the biggest feature of all, the front gate. My goodness, that is going to be monstrous. So much achieved, but so much left to do. All before I leave leave New Zealand later in the year. But man, oh man, is it exciting to finally see these pieces all together. A huge thank you, as always, to my Patreons for their support. You guys have been so integral to this project. With a special shout out to my Mega Zorptrons, the support from all of you is incredible. To join these amazing folks and check out all the sexy rewards, have a look at the link in the description, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. Lockie out.